Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. So today I'm here with my International 1086 and I've got a little project. I'd like to widen these wheels out just a little bit. So right now the wheel spacing is about 32 inches and the total width is 64. Also on these axles, from the edge of the hub out to the end of the axle is 14.5 inches. And what I'd like to do is bring that out to where it's 12, so widen this 2.5 inches on each side or 5 inches overall. So the reason I want to widen this out is because I use this on a lot of hilly terrain, and it's not unstable right now, but it would be a whole lot more stable if it was just a little wider. So we're going to get to work on it. So these International 1086s use a wedge lock to hold the rim on the axle, and that's one way you can move it, is just to loosen these two wedges, which takes a special tool that I don't have, and then just move it out. The other item we can do is to loosen all of these bolts, and instead of having this rim mounted on this wedge here, there's a separate rim edge inside. So the other item that we can change to widen this stance out, and it looks like we gain about 4 inches here, is right now this rim is bolted to the outer ridge on this rim, and if we loosen that up and put it on this one, we'll gain about 4 inches there. So that's the other option I've got if I can't make these wedge locks come unlocked. So right now I'll jack this tractor up, get it securely stabilized on jack stands, and it's chalked so that the wheels can't roll, and we'll get this thing picked up off the ground. All right, so I don't know the best way to jack this up, but I've got my 20-ton jack, and I've got a jack stand on each side of the axle. So they make tractor-specific jack stands and a lot of tractor-specific tools, and I don't have a lot of that because this is the only big tractor I've got. But I think what I can do is jack this up and get both wheels off the ground, raise the jack stands up, and then lower that jack and have this pretty well supported. I've got cribbing under there that the jacks are sitting on. So let's try it out. As always, if you know a better way to do this or have any suggestions, definitely throw them in the comments. I'll appreciate them. Okay, with the 20-ton jack, I've maxed out my lift, and I've also raised the jack stands up as high as they'll go. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to need more cribbing. You can see that one's raised up as well. So what I'm going to do is lower this back down onto these jack stands, get some cribbing for the jack to extend its reach, and then jack it up and then build up these cribs for the jack stands and get this thing. It's high enough off the ground now on the right. The left is still just a little bit lower than I'd like it to be, but I don't like these jack stands extended this far, so I'm going to bulk them up some way. Okay, but I've got this one off the ground. It's in park is why it won't roll, but it is off the ground. Okay, so we're back and we've got our tractor jacked up in the back, and what we've got is this tire is all but off the ground, and we've got our 6-ton jack stands under here, and I've got my 20-ton jacks, and I've got a pair of those that are just barely below the level of that frame. And then this tire will be the one we start working on first, and it's totally off the ground. Okay, and the first thing we need to do is rotate this around so that that clamp is at the bottom. So I'm going to spin this tire around. And the tractor's in neutral.
That's good.
Okay, I'm going to try to move this out without taking these weights off. But if I have problems, the weights will be the first thing to come off. So the next step is I'm going to PB blaster everything that is going to need to move. So on that clamp, I'll do the clamping surfaces as best I can. And then the top along the axle. And then I'll go around to the back and do it. Okay, so same thing, I'm going to PB blaster basically everything I can reach. on these clamps and on those surfaces. Here is the wedge bolt, and what I found is that's a 12 point and it's a 22 millimeter is what I found that fits that the best. Okay, so I've got that 22 millimeter socket on there. What's weird is on the other side, 7/8 was a little bit too loose and 22 millimeter fit perfectly. On this side, believe it or not, the 7/8 didn't go on and neither did the 22. So I just kind of drove that 22 socket on there. And what I want to do first of all is just see how tight this is. They said that this can be torqued up to 400 pounds. Okay, and it's going to turn the tractor tire. So what I'm going to do is get the impact gun and hit it with that and see what we got. Okay, I'm going to start with my 3/4 impact gun and we'll see what we got. Might need another extension. Well, that didn't do anything. So sometimes when I run this, I can't use this 3/8 hose, so I might go get my larger hose. All right, let's go check the air pressure. Okay, and I double checked, I've got 100 PSI going to this. My next option is to put the larger air hose on it, get a little more volume of air. Go forward for a second. It doesn't look to me like we're making any progress. So let's get our bigger air hose. We switched to our larger diameter air hose, which is 1/2 inch, the other stuff's 3/8. See if that makes any difference. I think it started to turn. Yep, it's definitely turning. Not turning a lot, but it's turning. Let the air hose build up just a little bit. Okay, I've got more PB Blaster in there, and I've got the air tank charged back up. Okay, so the problem that I've got is I've got a 1/2 inch socket and I'm going to try and spin it with a 1 inch impact gun. So I've got my 1 inch to 3/4 adapter with a 3/4 to 1/2 adapter. And then I've got my extension going to my impact socket. So I'm going to put that on there and I'm going to use this on loosening one and see if it moves anywhere. Of course, the nice thing is we've had our PB Blaster soaking for a while now. So we'll see what we got. Let's go forward a little bit. Okay, let's try loosening on 2. Try tightening on 2. Okay, so it tightened a little bit. Try loosening on 2 again. Okay, and what I'm afraid of is that one of these extensions is going to explode. The air compressor all the way built up. I'm going to try it without that. Whoop, and yeah, it's not going to fit. The axle's a little too deep, so I'm going to need some amount of extension anyway, so I might as well just use the long one. Okay, we're in. We're on reverse 3. Woo. Let's see, and we're on reverse. I'm gonna go ahead and go to 3. Are you in there where you can see no shadows? Look at that. And that popped it right out. So that's only one side, unfortunately. All right, so now that we've got this outer wedge loose, my plan, they make a C-tool that clamps around there, and then this wedge would lock against it and then push the other wedge out. Since I don't have that tool, my plan was to use an air impact gun with a driver bit to drive that out, but right, it's not long enough to get in there past this one, so I'm just going to pull this wedge out is my plan. And the reason that's safe to do, the way I've got it figured, is this tire, this wheel, is sitting down on this axle. So if I take this out, that's not going to change this wheel. So I think I can get it out, and then if I get the other wedge moved, I think I'll be able to put this back in after I've moved my wheel. So that's the hope. We'll see how it goes. And I could have used the air impact, but I thought it's loose now. I just use this ratchet to pull this rest of the way out, and it's just about there. Okay, so this is the wedge, and I kind of wanted it out anyway because they said to clean them and oil them before you put them back in, and they also say never ever use anti-seize on these. So plus I'm gonna have to get this socket that I kind of wedged on there off. So now that that's all out, let's see if we can take our impact gun. See if it'll reach first. Okay, it does. Not easily, but it does. And I see that there's no PB Blaster on that edge, so I'm going to put some PB Blaster in there from straight on, and then we'll see what we can do. And I just had another thought. What I could do is put a bolt on that, put a bolt in here, and maybe use the air chisel, right, because it doesn't spin, to impact that bolt and drive that out also. Okay, so I'm going to try and get that other wedge loose with this air impact gun. All right, air hammer, and see how that does, which I've read online. A few people said this is how they always do it. I've also read that it says don't do it this way because you might damage the seal, and I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to take it easy with it. There it went. Ah, look at that. That's pretty slick, and I'm confident that nothing moved to damage any kind of seal or anything in there. This wheel is now totally loose unless it's just corroded to the top of this axle, but it's hanging on the axle, and so now we'll get a jack on here and see about moving this wheel out. Okay, so we've got our wedge completely loose, and this one's out, but what I'm going to do is put this back in there loosely. I also read that you should clean these and oil them. I think it's pretty clean, and it's got quite a bit of oil in it. What they did say was don't ever use never seize on these, and that's something they have to tell me because I like never seize and I use it on a lot of stuff. But I can kind of see where your wheel wedges are probably something you don't want that on. So I'm just going to put this back in and loosely thread it in there. We've got everything loose on this wheel, and we've got our mark on the axle where we want to move this to. So we're going to move each tire out 5 inches, which will make the stance of this tractor 10 inches wider. And I really believe with the extra weights that we've got on it and everything, that will make this much more stable. All right, so this little contraption we've got made up, hopefully, is going to drag this wheel right to us. So I've got my 4-ton jack in here with a chain around the wheels, and it's pumping and it's tightening, and it just moved. Oh, look at that. Pretty slick, if I do say so myself, and I definitely do. Okay, the only problem I see is I'm going to run out of throw on this before I hit my 5 inches, which means we'll have to reset.
We could actually probably just put a bigger block in there.
Okay, we can try that. Okay, so that's it on the throw of that jack. And look at that, we're about halfway, I think, though. Okay, so we're reset, and we're gonna try another pull. I did think about, I could just hook another tractor to this and pull it, but what I don't wanna do is move the whole tractor. By pulling off this axle, nothing else on this tractor is being stressed. What you don't wanna do when you got the wheels loose is knock it off your jacks. So I'm just going to keep doing this. Okay, and it's tight, and now it's moving the wheel. Okay, so I've got about, let's say probably 2 inches to go. What I don't want to do is go too far. Okay, so that's it for this one. What I think I'll do is push this back in and unscrew the little screw jack part, which will extend this out without throwing a third block in it. Okay, so I'm gonna say we've got about 1 inch, maybe a little less to go to hit that line. So this should be our last pump with our jack. Are you ready? Back a little bit,
I'm ready.
Okay, so we're gonna pump this one more time. And Maggie's gonna tell me when to stop. Okay, we're there.
Okay, just a little bit more. Right there, stop.
Okay, and that looks good to me. Back up so you can see the whole setup. Okay, so once you get this tight, it'll hold itself, but it's a balancing act and a half to get it there. Okay, so I'm gonna take my 3/4 inch impact gun and run this bolt back down in there, tighten those wedges up, and then I'll go get my torque wrench and do a final tighten to 400 foot-pounds. Alrighty, so let's get this on here. Okay, and one of the things they say to do is to drive the tractor and stomp on the brakes once you get going a little bit, and that kind of helps seat that and then keep torquing it down. Okay, let's get the torque wrench and see where we're at. Okay, so I've got my big torque wrench and I've got it set to 400 pounds. I bought this torque wrench when I was working on the RV suspension, and this is about the 5th time it's come in very handy. So I don't know if I'd recommend buying one. It was a little bit expensive, and you're not going to run across the need for it every day, but when you do, it's awfully nice. And it's already 400 pounds. All right. Well, I'm going to leave it there. It might be torqued a little higher than 400, but they said at least 400, so it's there. All right, so we're back this morning. We've got the other side finished, and so we're going to do this side. And what we have to do is rotate this around so that this is up, so that the clamp is hanging down. All right, so let's roll this wheel around. And even though it's off the ground, they don't roll real easily. There is a lot of weight there. Okay, so we've got the axle in the right position with the clamp on the bottom side, and we just have to go in and release our wedges. Okay, so this tractor, I believe I looked it up, it was supposedly a 1978. So the metric craze wasn't quite hitting the US at that time. So most likely that 12-point bolt, I'm going to say most likely is a 7/8. But when I was looking at this, and I actually ordered this socket special because I didn't have an impact that size, the 7/8, if you look at it, zoom in here, the 7/8 is fairly loose, where this 22 millimeter is a lot tighter. And so I was kind of surprised on the other side when I had trouble getting either one of these sockets on. I ended up just taking this 22, which is a 12-point, because the bolt is a 12-point, and driving it on. The other thing is, I always thought, and I was always told, that these 12-point sockets were like a lesser quality than the 6-point sockets. So I've got a expensive set of sockets in there, both impact and regular, that are 6-point. But then I found out that some of these heavy-duty applications that you'll find in trucks and machinery, they're 12-point because it's supposed to be a much stronger head, they say. So I've got this special 12-point socket, and I've got a 12-point bolt. Many of you have heard me talk about I grew up in a hardware store, and I remember my grandfather complaining about 12-point sockets. And literally they would say that, well, a 12-point, you'll just round off that bolt with them. And what I recently learned is some applications for heavy-duty equipment use 12-point specifically because they are stronger if you have a 12-point socket. So I would never use this 12-point socket on a 6-point bolt, but right here is a 12-point that is torqued to 400 pounds, and honestly, you're going to have this 12-point. So I also had a clutch on an Arctic Cat snowmobile that used a 12-point. And that was the first place I ran into it. And like I said, some of these high torque applications, you'll find these 12-point bolt heads. And it's not just because you got a cheap socket set. They're actually stronger. You got it.
Wow.
That's beautiful. Okay.
Loosen it up pretty good.
Okay, that 1-inch earthquake impact gun sure made this easy. This is the second side I did. The first side, I worked several hours with a 3/4 impact gun before I went and got that 1-inch, and it sure did make it easy. So what happens is when you loosen this bolt, it drives those wedges apart, and either the outside one or the inside one will be driven out. Then you still got the other wedge in there stuck. But I'm just taking this bolt out now. And actually that's still tight. All right, so we've got our outside wedge off. And the way these work is these wedges have this big bolt through the middle of them. And this wedge bites onto the axle, which then allows the top of the hub to be drawn down onto the top of the axle. And then the wedge that's still stuck in there, right, these two wedges get pulled together, which tightens that. When you go to loosen this bolt, it starts pushing these wedges apart. And either the inside or the outside, actually this is the outside, either the outside or the inside wedge will be driven out, which will let it loosen up. Then what you've got to do is get the other wedge out. Now they make a special set of clamps, which I've seen a few of them. They're about $300 for that set of clamps. And what happens is when you put the clamps on the hub, as this works out, it hits that clamp, which makes this one not be able to move, which then pushes the inside one out. But I didn't have those, so we had to find another way to do it. So what I'm using this for is to get these wedges out of this wheel. And I've got the outer wedge out, but the inner wedge is still clamped in there. And so that's what's holding this giant wheel on. So you can imagine it's pretty tight. But I'm going to take this air impact gun and try to drive that wedge out. So let's give it a shot. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of air to it. I found yesterday that running this on 60 PSI gave me the control I needed to keep it hitting what I wanted without having too little power, and I've got to turn down a little too much right now. It doesn't have any power. Okay, so I've got it set on 60 PSI now. I tried to turn it down to that, and it actually dropped to about 40, which didn't have enough power. I used it on 90 pounds yesterday, and you couldn't control it. It was just bouncing off too much. So let's try it there. Oh yeah, that's gonna do it. we go. Okay, so here is the line that we're going to so that this wheel matches the other side. And we've got our chain set up and our little hydraulic jack. So we'll see if we can't get it there.
There it goes.
Okay. So we'll see if we can't capture it moving. There we go. Okay, we'll have to reset our jack at this point. Okay, we've got our chains reset. So we should be able to get this moved out. Oh yeah, that's moving. Yep, but I think we're out of stroke.
Okay, well, let's just redo it.
Okay. So that's working it. That chain is tight as a banjo. Yep, probably about 2.5 inches.
Keep going. Okay, about half an inch. Two more. One more. One more. Good. Stop.
Okay.
That is it.
What do you think of that homemade
It's working.
puller?
That's all we gotta have.
Okay, so there's our line, and we're actually right to it.
Dead on.
So don't get no better than that. So we'll take this apart and put our wedges in, and we'll be done with this project. Okay, and we'll put our wedge back in this wheel and lock it down to 400 foot-pounds. Okay, so there is the inner wedge. Okay, so the inner wedge is in there. We'll put the outer wedge in, and we've got to start this bolt without pushing that out. There we go. The bolt is now started, and I'll get an impact gun and run that in just to snug it up, and then I'll take my big torque wrench and torque it to 400 foot-pounds. Okay, and to snug this up, I'm just going to use my 1/2-inch DeWalt battery powered impact gun, because all I'm going to do is snug these up. Okay, now I'll give it a little blip, and then I'll hand torque it to 400 foot-pounds. All right, let's get her torqued down. Okay, I've got my torque wrench set to 400 foot-pounds. Let's see what we can do. All right, I haven't hit 400 foot-pounds yet, but the wheel started spinning, and I thought, well, I'll put it back in park. And then it seemed like maybe I didn't want to force that torque through the transmission. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this off the jacks now, put it on the ground and torque it up. Okay, so we'll just jack this up a little bit so we can get our jack stands out and then lower it onto the ground. Okay, that one's free. Oh, there you go, now it's free for sure. There, I get it.
You're get it.
Now we'll do that same thing to the other side. And then we'll lower our jack stands. Okay, that's free. Never go up higher than you have to. There we go. All right, now then, that end's touching the ground already, so I'm gonna lower this jack just a little bit, very slowly. Okay, and that's coming down. It's coming down very slow, but that's what I want. Okay, now I'll lower this one also. All right, and our tractor is back on the ground. Awesome. Okay, now I can torque this wheel up. There's the difference that we move that wheel out. And there's the difference on this side. You can see where those, if I can block the shadow, you can see where those wedges were at and where they're at now. So we definitely have a wider stance, which will be more stable, which will be safer, which is what we were looking for. All right, we'll do our final 400 foot-pound torque. Because with a wheel this big and heavy, you don't want a loose one. And there it is, 400 pounds. All right, well, this big torque wrench doesn't come in handy every day, but when it does, nothing else will do it.
This is the angel baby.
Yeah, her name is Pepper. And she's white.
She is not impressed. Yeah.
Well,
What do you think of it?
what do I think of it? I thought it was, I saw it before you.
What do you think of it with the new shoes on it?
Oh, yeah. It looked good.
Yeah.
How was it driving, Robbie? Was it stable?
Yep. Well, you know, it's always been on flat ground, but yeah, it'll be way more stable on the
yeah.
hills, which is about all we got.
Yeah, flat ground's at a premium
Well,
around
I
here.
did, though, I decided this seam, I wanted to put it even with that fender, so I ended up moving both of them out 5 inches. And so it's 10 inches wider than it was. And the other thing that I didn't like these axles sticking out so far from this way. I mean, remember it was like this.
Yeah.
And I was afraid I'd drive by and hit a tree with that or something, not miss it this way. I mean, it still sticks out some, but I'll probably be thinking I'm gonna hit the tree a lot before I hit that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that heavy cab on.
Yeah,
You don't have to worry about that.
right. The nice thing is, we were gonna take this rim off, right? Take the rim off because this rim is a two position thing. It's on the narrowest now. I could have taken this rim off this hub and moved the rim out, and that would have got us about 4 inches on each side too. But then I'd have this whole thing loose and have to hold it up.
How are you gonna do that?
Yeah, well, I'd use the excavator, put a strap through and use the excavator to pull it out. But I didn't have to move his weights, I didn't have to move his rim or nothing, so.
That's gonna be 400
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I bet. I don't know, each one of these might be 100 pounds. I have no idea what they are.
I'm giving you 50 pounds.
50 a piece?
They might be more.
I don't know, I never took one off, so I didn't weigh it.
Is that a 6L?
I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that might be for the foundry thing. Could be a 79, but I doubt it's 79 pounds. And that might be for 1979, because that's what I looked up. I thought it was 1978 tractor, so 79 might be the year they made that. No, not really. But I know this, I used 3 cans of PB Blaster, and I only took 1 bolt off on each side.
Well, that's
Yes, but
still pretty good.
that'd be like the field. It's never been taken off.
Right. Well, I think, and look, you can see a discoloration here. I bet this tractor had duals on it until recently.
Oh,
Probably had.
Yeah, because that would make sense why this was so narrow if you had another whole wheel
you
out
had
here.
another wheel on it.
But I like duals, but single's enough for me, but I want it wider.
Yeah.
That thing's got 130 horsepower. They ain't like real horses.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, 130 horsepower turbo diesel. Red power.
I doubt that you can hook 130 horses to it. I don't know how in the hell you hook up 130 horses.
I don't know. You know, if anybody knows, somebody in this county or the next one would, though.
Yeah.
Well, I got a Torqueese plug down. Did you see me hit the brakes? I got it up to a higher speed. I went second gear in high, went as fast as it would go, and then locked up the brake.
Good Lord.
My mercy.
There you go. You want to tighten this thing? I got to put it back on 400.
On 400 pounds?
Yep.
Horse?
Can you guys stand out to that side and I can film it
Over
better?
here?
That's
Uh-huh.
your $500 tool?
No, no, no. This one, I had this. I bought this when I was working on the
Stand on
RV.
that side.
Yeah, I had to buy this to work on the RV.
Step up.
Oh. How much it cost?
I don't know. It's like okay, so 400 foot-pounds.
It's okay.
And it's still at 400 foot-pounds, so that's good.
Oh, it's still there? Oh,
Yep. So let's go to the other side and I'll fork it up.
So what's that? The brake?
No, that's the clamp. See that thing he had? That's the clamp. There's 2 pieces.
Uh-huh.
They clamp together in there to hold that wheel on that axle.
One bolt?
Yep.
Yep.
And 2 wedges.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it
And now that they're wider, you can
different.
see it on the backside here. So, see that bolt sticking out there?
Yeah, I
Okay, so that bolt goes through those 2 wedges, and as you tighten them down, it pulls those wedges together, which tightens that hub against that axle, yeah.
do. Okay. You think there'd be a little bit more?
Well, one time on a tractor, I turned the wheel off.
ooh. That's bad.
Okay, it's still at 400 pounds, so.
Okay, perfect.
So I'll just check those a couple times in the next few weeks and stuff too, as I use it, and make sure nothing loosens up.
Now, what do you basically use it for?
Do what? Yeah.
For ponds?
Yeah, mow that field, mow this front yard.
To be able to be able to pull that 10-foot bush hog.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure would.
Yeah. Oh, it won't have those numbers. It'll get a 15.
Yeah. And it'll pull any logs we got out in the woods up back there too.
Well, there is
It'll
that.
pull a big one.
Yeah.
What did it push away?
What did we look up, babe? It was like 12,000 pounds, I think. It said between 12,000 and 13,000 pounds. So.
I bet you ain't
Yeah,
counting
tractor.
that with all the other stuff.
Yeah, it's got add-on weight on the front end there, so it's probably 6.5 tons.
Now, you got all this weight back here, and you have the weight
Yeah.
up front.
Yeah, they're on the front. So.
Well, it's stabilized. Oh, I see, okay.
600 pounds.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
600 pounds. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. There's 100 pounds.
Thanks a lot for watching our video. We sure love that old tractor. If you enjoyed this video, we'd sure appreciate a like. If you have any questions or comments, we'll answer them all. For Maggie and I, have a great day and be safe.